So today we are going to talk about the nutrition in various organisms. As you know, living organisms are we can classify broadly the living organisms in plants and animals. And among animals, we are also uh, going to talk about the nutrition in humans. So basically, today, nutrition, we know that nutrition is a very, very essential thing. It is very, very one of the essential metabolic process for each and every living organism. In this coming slides, you will find that we'll be talking about the nutrition in plants, and in subsequent lectures or in subsequent coming lectures, we will be also talking about various modes of nutrition and the utility of nutrition in different types of animals, and as well as we will be talking about the nutrition in humans also. So in coming slides, students, we are going to talk about the nutrition in plants. Just focus on that. I hope you'll find this discussion very useful and healthy for you. So here we are with the uh, topic. The first topic of the slides which we have got is the nutrition in plants. So nutrition, first of all, why it is important and what is nutrition? Basically, intake of food to obtain the energy is called as nutrition. In short, if we want to understand this in brief, that is the one way of understanding what is the nutrition. And every living organism needs nutrition because it derives energy for all the metabolic processes which we are going to do or any living organism performs. तो न्यूट्रिशन जो है हम सब के लिए, सारे लिविंग ऑर्गेनिजम्स के लिए एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट प्रोसेस है. और न्यूट्रिशन को अगर हम संक्षिप्त रूप में समझना चाहें तो सिंपल भाषा में हम ये कह सकते हैं कि फूड का इंटेक यानी कि फूड को या भोजन को ग्रहण करना वो और उसका यूटिलाइजेशन वो न्यूट्रिशन कहलाता है. और आपको पता है कि भोजन हमारे लिए क्यों ज़रूरी है या किसी भी लिविंग ऑर्गेनिज्म के लिए भोजन क्यों ज़रूरी है? ताकि उससे ऊर्जा प्राप्त हो सके, एनर्जी प्राप्त कर सकें हम. सो न्यूट्रिशन in plants is also important because plants are also living organisms and they also need energy. So nutrition is basically mode of taking food by any living organism, and its utilization by the body of the living organism is called as nutrition. And in nutrition, what we take is that is the food or the compound which is taken inside by any living organism to derive energy out of it is called as food. तो भोजन यहाँ पर हमने देखा कि वो सभी लिविंग ऑर्गेनिजम्स के लिए अति आवश्यक है, क्योंकि भोजन से ऊर्जा प्राप्त होती है. और ऊर्जा कोई भी लिविंग ऑर्गेनिज्म, चाहे वो प्लांट्स हों, चाहे एनिमल्स हों या हम ह्यूमंस हों, सबके लिए ऊर्जा ज़रूरी है अपने दैनिक कार्यों को करने के लिए. सो food is very very essential for all the living organisms. And as we have talked about the definition of the nutrition. Nutrition is basically, I repeat once again, is the mode of intake of food by an organism and its utilization by the body to derive the energy. Now the question is ki, what are the components of the food? The components of the food includes carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are what? They are the compounds made up of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Carbohydrates examples are like glucose, starch, sucrose. These are all examples of carbohydrate. Then proteins. Proteins are another important source of food. They are made up of amino acids. They are the polymers of amino acids and fats. So carbohydrates, proteins and fats along with vitamins and minerals, they are the chief components of food, and they are put together called as the nutrients. Now when we will be talking about the balanced diet in the coming lectures, we will be talking about the balanced diet, then you will be coming to know about that what are the significance of all these nutrients individually. They have their own significance in taking care of different types of uh, rectifying the deficiencies of different kind of minerals and elements so that our body can remain healthy. Like say for example, if you see, vitamin A is very essential for the good healthy eyesight or for the proper functioning of the eyesight or the eyes. Vitamin A is very essential. Likewise, you see vitamin D is very essential for the proper absorption of the calcium that enhances the calcium absorption to make our bones more stronger, and so on. So we'll be talking about individually when we'll be going in much more deep. तो इस तरह से हम देखते हैं कि जो भोजन के मुख्य कंपोनेंट्स या जो भाग होते हैं उनमें कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स, प्रोटीन्स, वसा, विटामिन्स और जो मिनरल यानी कि तत्व जो अलग माइक्रो और मैक्रो एलिमेंट्स के रूप में हमारे भोजन में, जैसे कि आयोडीन है, सोडियम है, कैल्शियम है, पोटेशियम है, क्लोराइड आयंस हैं. तो these are all different types of ions and minerals which are very essential for our proper functioning of the body system. तो इस तरह से organisms, then we will be talking about, since now we are talking about the nutrition in plants only, so we will be talking right now here about the mechanism of food synthesis in plants. Why I'm talking about the mechanism of food synthesis in plants? Because see, among all the living organisms, plants are the only one which has the capability to prepare their own food. यानी कि plants ही ऐसे या पौधे पौधे ही ऐसे लिविंग ऑर्गेनिज्म हैं धरती पर जिनके पास ये क्षमता है कि वो अपना भोजन स्वयं बना सकते हैं. यानी कि वो स्वपोषी होते हैं, उन्हें किसी और दूसरे ऑर्गेनिज्म पे अपने भोजन के लिए डिपेंड होने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. Why it is so, we will be looking forward in the coming slides. और आपने पढ़ा भी होगा, you also might be knowing, yes, you are guessing right, that they are autotrophs. Why they are autotrophs? Because they have the capability of synthesizing their own food through the process known as the photosynthesis. Yes, you are right. So organisms make their own food themselves by simple substances. Simple substances we'll be again talking in the coming sessions right now. और इसलिए हम प्लांट्स को ऑटोट्रॉफ्स बोलते हैं. और एस टाइप के न्यूट्रिशन को, जिसमें कि ऑर्गेनिज्म अपना भोजन स्वयं बना सकता है या स्वयं बनाने की क्षमता रखता है, जैसे ग्रीन प्लांट्स, ऐसा टाइप का न्यूट्रिशन ऑटोट्रॉफिक न्यूट्रिशन कहलाता है. So I repeat once again, organisms which make their own food themselves, or they are capable of preparing their, synthesizing their own food themselves by the help of simple substances like carbon dioxide, water. Such kind of nutrition is called as autotrophic nutrition, and this kind of nutrition is exhibited by green plants due to their ability of possessing chlorophyll as the chief pigment, which helps in trapping the sunlight. And along with that sunlight, chlorophyll, the raw material required is carbon dioxide and water put together. It synthesizes this food in the form of complex substances like carbohydrates. So plants can synthesize their own food, hence they are called as autotrophs. Now here in this, the, we'll be talking about the process of photosynthesis, as we have just now discussed that green plants are the ones who can synthesize their own food. So food making process in plants, how do that takes place? Basically, we are superficially looking at, we are not going much into the deep knowledge of the photosynthesis process, like the cyclic or non-cyclic photophosphorylation, and then all those things which we are not going to discuss over here, Krebs cycle and how do these. So we are not going to discuss the complex part of the photosynthesis, but superficially we will learn about that how and what are those substances that helps in making these complex substances, such as carbohydrates in the form of sucrose, carbohydrates in the form of starch or glucose. So how do these are being synthesized? So raw materials like carbon dioxide, which is in the form of the gas present in the air, and water and minerals, they are present in the soil. So basically these are the raw materials which plants require, and these two things like carbon dioxide and water, which are these two along with the minerals, plants obtain these from two different sources. One of them is the stomata, which is present in the on the surface of the epidermal surface of the most of the green plants, on the green surface of the leaves. Epidermal surface of the leaves possess these tiny pores in the form of stomata. And water and minerals, the second essential component that plants absorb or by the help of root. And these substances like water and minerals, once they are absorbed by the root with the help of, obviously root hairs, or do help in the absorption by increasing the surface area for the absorption of water and minerals. And then this absorbed water is transported and translocated to each and every nook and corner of the plant, to each and every leaves. तो यहाँ से हम देखते हैं कि वायु से, हवा के साथ जो कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड इन्वॉल्व है एज अ मिक्सचर of one of the gas of the air that is taken up by the plants through stomata. Stomata से वो tiny pores जो कि leaves के surface पे present होते हैं. Stomata के structure के बारे में हम आगे पढ़ेंगे and we'll be talking much more in deep. तो स्टोमेटा आपने वैसे छोटी क्लासेस में और पहले भी पढ़ा हुआ है कि स्टोमेटा का अगर हम स्ट्रक्चर ध्यान से देखें तो इट इज गार्डेड बाय टू किडनी शेप और बीन शेप्ड cells. They are called as the guard cells. The inner surface of these guard cells are thick, and once they are in the target position, guard cells, the stomatal pore is open that allows the intake, and I mean not only intake, it is rather we should call it as a gaseous exchange. So gaseous exchange can easily take place, like carbon dioxide can move inside through this stomatal pore, oxygen can come out, and vice versa can take place when the process of respiration is taking place. So these stomatal pore which are present as a tiny pore, एक छोटे सूक्ष्म छिद्र के रूप में अगर आप माइक्रोस्कोपिक स्ट्रक्चर्स होते हैं प्रॉपर्ली स्टेन करके देखें आपको तो ये गार्ड सेल्स और खुली हुई गार्ड सेल्स स्टोमेटल पोर आपको आसानी से एक कंपाउंड माइक्रोस्कोप में दिखाई देते हैं. नाउ दीज स्टोमेटल पोर्स जैसा मैंने आपसे बताया दे आर इन्वॉल्व mainly in two processes. One is the gaseous exchange, another one is the transpiration. So transpiration is what? Transpiration is the loss of water in the form of vapor that brings about the cooling effect for the plants. That is very, very essential again. So these two things they help, that means roots and stomatal pore, they are the one which help in obtaining these raw materials like carbon dioxide and water and minerals. So water and minerals are transported to the leaves by the vessels. Now what are vessels? See, you have seen the pipelines in the buildings through which the water is translocated from the ground tank to the overhead tank to the different distributing outlets of the building. सो सिमिलरली जैसा कि हम घर में देखते हैं कि नीचे से जो अंडरग्राउंड टैंक है वहां से पानी को ऊपर शिफ्ट करने के लिए ओवरहेड टैंक तक शिफ्ट करने के लिए देयर इज अ पाइपलाइन through which the pump can transfer the water from the ground tank, underground tank to the overhead tank, and then from the overhead tank another type of vessels or the pipeline which is circulated and distributed throughout the buildings ताकि हमारे को हर आउटलेट पे पानी मिलता है. So this is possible only once we have the network of these pipelines. Similar type of vessels or pipelines, actually we should call it as the vessels in the form of the xylem. These are the basically xylem tissues and the phloem tissues which are called as the cumulatively they are called as the conductive tissues of the plants. So water and minerals these are transported to the leaves by the help of these conductive tissues xylem, which are made up of four types of cells: xylem vessels, xylem parenchyma, xylem tracheids, and xylem fibers. So these different type of xylem cells, which for three of them except xylem parenchyma, rest others like xylem fibers, xylem tracheids, and xylem vessels, they are dead cells. Xylem parenchyma, they are the living cells. तो ये जो है, they are one of the chief component conducting vessels of the plants which help the water and minerals to transport the water from roots to the tip of the leaves. So this is how the conductive system in the plants exists. Continuing with the same food making processes in plants, here we have something more to share with you. Leaves have a green pigment called chlorophyll. See, leaves are called as the kitchen factory of the kitchen factory of the plant cells. So now there is a specialized pigment, and I'm sure you might be remembering कि जब हम plant cell और animal cell में difference पढ़ रहे थे छोटी क्लासेस में तो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट डिफरेंस जो हमने पढ़ा था वो क्या पढ़ा था कि प्लांट सेल्स के अंदर प्लास्टिड्स पाए जाते हैं और एनिमल सेल्स के अंदर प्लास्टिड्स नहीं होते हैं. नाउ व्हाट आर प्लास्टिड्स? प्लास्टिड्स दे आर स्पेशलाइज्ड colored pigments, and chlorophyll is one such pigment which is green in color, which imparts the green color to the leaves or to stem also. Stem also in what? Like in case of cacti or in case of cactus family, like euphorbia, like opuntia. In these xerophytic plants, the leaves, the stem takes the modification. They are all called as the modification of the leaves. So stem takes up the function of the leaves and it becomes chlorophyllous and performs the function of photosynthesis. That we'll be talking as an exception when we'll be talking about somewhere the modification of stem and leaves. So don't worry, we'll be talking much more about that. So here chlorophyll is a green color pigment There are 5 types of chlorophyll present: chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, C, D, and E. Out of which chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B, their chlorophyll A is supposed to be the chief reaction center. We'll be talking about when we'll be talking photosynthesis in detail. I'll be discussing this topic in the length with you. So chlorophyll, what is the why this pigment is so talked about? Why this pigment is so important for plant cells? क्योंकि क्लोरोफिल क्या करता है, सोलर एनर्जी को, सोलर रेडिएशंस को कैप्चर करता है एज अ source of energy. So chlorophyll is very very essential for capturing the solar radiations or the energy of the sunlight, and this solar energy is used to synthesize the food from carbon dioxide and water. That means carbon dioxide fixation. दूसरे शब्दों में अगर हम बोलें तो these chlorophyll pigments, they trap the sunlight or the energy of the photons which is there in the sunlight. By trapping this sunlight, they help in synthesizing the food from fixing the carbon dioxide, or by simply making carbohydrates with the help of carbon dioxide and water. You will be talking much more about in detail how do these process takes place later on. So synthesis of food occurs in the presence of the sunlight, hence it is called as photosynthesis. See, split kariye word ko, photo plus synthesis. Photo means in the presence of sunlight. Though light is very very essential, there are two phases you will again learn when we will be talking about the photosynthesis. There is a one part of the carbohydrate synthesis is dark reactions that takes place in the absence of the sunlight, whereas light reactions, they very much require the presence of sunlight. So these light reactions, they govern during the presence of sunlight only. Therefore इसलिए हम इस प्रोसेस को फोटोसिंथेसिस बोलते हैं, क्योंकि यहाँ पर कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स की सिंथेसिस या फूड की सिंथेसिस प्लांट्स के लिए सूर्य के प्रकाश की प्रेजेंस में होती है, या सिंथेसिस ऑफ फूड के लिए सूर्य के प्रकाश का प्रेजेंट होना बहुत ज़रूरी है. इसलिए इस प्रोसेस को हम फोटोसिंथेसिस बोलते हैं. फोटो मीन्स लाइट, सिंथेसिस मीन्स संश्लेषण, तो इसलिए इसको हिंदी में प्रकाश संश्लेषण भी बोलते हैं. Therefore, now we can understand that why sun is known as the ultimate source of energy for all living organisms. Why only, not for only plants? सारे living organisms के लिए हम क्यों बोल रहे हैं भाई? भाई खाना तो प्लांट्स बना रहे हैं ना अपने लिए, तो हमारे लिए क्यों? बट why we call it sun as the ultimate source of energy for all living organisms? Any guess? This is why, because the food which is synthesized and produced by these green plants, they are eventually eaten up by herbivores. Herbivores are being eaten up by carnivores or omnivores, and omnivores or carnivores are further eaten up by the top carnivores. So for top carnivores also, if we say that even the top carnivores such as lion, tiger, and bear, kind of those the top carnivores, who do not even eat even a part of the plant, but yet their survival is dependent on these green plants only. Why? Because the flow of energy is unidirectional. When we'll be talking about the pyramids, energy pyramids and food chain, then we will see that these green plants, they synthesize the food that is being eaten up by the herbivores. The energy is transferred from herbivores, green plants to herbivores. The same energy which herbivores get from plants, they are being eaten up by the carnivores, then they are further eaten up by the top carnivores. So this flow of energy by obtaining food is primarily coming from the green plants only. Therefore, we can say that even top carnivores are indirectly dependent on the green plants only for obtaining food, because ultimately the mass or the flesh which they are eating is the result of being eating the green plant subsequently. अगर आज कोई हिरन का बच्चा ग्रीन प्लांट्स को खा कर करके बड़ा हिरन बन गया है, उसके मास में इंक्रीज आ गया है, बॉडी वेट इनका बढ़ गया है, और उसको कोई कार्निवोर खाता है और उस कार्निवोर को टॉप कार्निवोर खाता है, तो अल्टीमेट सोर्स ऑफ एनर्जी कहाँ से आया? ग्रीन प्लांट से आया. यस और नो? सो दिस इज व्हाई वी से that survival of almost all living organisms is directly or indirectly depends upon the food made by these green plants only. Therefore, sun is the ultimate source of energy for all living organisms, because if sun is not there, plants cannot synthesize the food. If plants are not synthesizing the food, herbivores are not going to get the food. They will be deprived of the food. If they are deprived of the food, carnivores will be deprived of their food. If these carnivores are deprived of their food, top carnivores are again going to be deprived of their food. So there will be no existence of the food chain in an ecosystem. Correct? Yes or no? Okay. Now we'll be talking about the oxygen, the another part, which is as a byproduct of the process of photosynthesis, yet it is very essential for sustaining the life on the earth. So oxygen is essential for the survival of all living organisms is produced during photosynthesis. यानी कि ऑक्सीजन भी जो कि सारे लिविंग ऑर्गेनिजम्स के लिए सर्वाइवल के लिए एक जीवनदायिनी गैस है, यानी वायु के अंदर ऑक्सीजन जो है वो कैसी है, प्राणदायिनी. इट इज द लाइफ गिविंग गैस, because without oxygen nobody can survive, as we have seen so many deaths occurring in this recent pandemic cases in during the attack of this coronavirus. So many people lost their lives because of the inadequate oxygen intake. So we can realize the significance of these green plants, how they are helpful, how they are saving our planets, how they are saving us. But it is sad part that we cut these plants ruthlessly without any mercy. So this is how this oxygen is a byproduct, yet it is very important for all of us. All the living organisms do need oxygen for breathing or for respiration. So presence of starch. Now see what is the outcome or what is the product which is being synthesized after the process of photosynthesis. जितना हमने बात किया photosynthesis की, तो outcome क्या है? Outcome is the starch. It is a polysaccharide, or it is a form of the carbohydrate which we can simply see form of uh, in the form of the powder which we obtain, or like in the water of the rice. आप चावल के पानी में देखते हैं स्टार्च मिलता है. यूसी आलू के जो आप आलू को अगर आप स्क्रैप करें तो उसके अंदर मिल्की सॉल्यूशन जैसा जो निकलता है, दैट इज द स्टार्च. सो आलू है, चावल है, मक्का है, इन या कॉर्न के जो आप सूप बनाते हैं, दैट ऑल्सो कंटेन्स स्टार्च. सो बेसिकली व्हाट इज दिस? This is basically the outcome or the product of the photosynthesis, and this is basically the reserve food material for all the living organisms, which either may be plant or maybe animals. So presence of starch we can detect in the leaves by doing simple iodine test, because we know iodine is a color indicator which turns blackish blue or blue, dark blue in color in the presence of starch. So the iodine color changes to black blue in the presence of starch. This is how we can confirm the presence of starch, or these leaves, when they have the starch they will be showing the blue color, because they can, by this we can confirm the presence of the starch in green leaves, which has been synthesized during the process of photosynthesis. In small classes, we have conducted an experiment also by keeping a potted plant for 3 to 4 days to de-starch the plant, then coming and putting this plant again, potted plant again, in for 6 hours in the presence of the sunlight, and then testing the part of the leaf for the presence of the for the synthesis of the starch. So by this method we can prove that how the green plants require sunlight to synthesize their food in the form of starch. Now we are talking about not only these green plants, there are tiny structures like algae. Algae are those green autotrophic organisms which have their own uh, um, kingdom. According to R.H. Whitaker classification, they have been placed very well in five kingdom classification. Algae, we talk them separately. So algae are another autotrophs which are not only found in the filamentous form, but they are also existing in colonial form like nostoc volvox, and also they are existing in as a unicellular algal components like chlamydomonas. So these algae, they can also prepare their own food because they are again chlorophyllous and they can synthesize their own food. So here is a picture for you all students. You can see here that how the process of photosynthesis takes place. You can see, wait a minute, you can see that just a minute. Yeah, let me draw this slide. Okay, so yeah, so you can see this is the sunlight. So sunlight is incident on the green leaves. So these green leaves, they possess these kind of chlorophyllous pigments. So this is the, I'll be discussing about this diagram of the leaf, TS of the leaf. I'll be talking about, this is the type TS or transverse section of the dicot stem leaf. So here, this incident light or the sunlight in the or the photons, they are incident on these leaves. They contain this chlorophyll pigment, chlorophyll A, and water is coming from the source of the root. So water is absorbed and they are distributed to each and every leaf over here till the tip of the plant. So each and every leaf is getting through these vessels which we talked on the in the previous slides. They are the one source to distribute this water and minerals. And there are tiny spores which are present, which we talked about, the stomata. So this carbon dioxide, say this is one carbon end which is bind to two oxygen, red ones are the oxygens. So this gray color is the carbon component element, and these red ones are the two oxygen molecules which are the oxygen atoms which are bind to the carbon atom. So CO2 or the carbon dioxide is absorbed by this stomatal pore. So now by this combination of carbon dioxide and water, these two put together, they synthesize sugars in the form of complex substances called as the carbohydrates. And simple carbohydrate is the glucose, that is C6H12O6, and the complex carbohydrate can be starch or sucrose. So different kind of polysaccharides, monosaccharides, they are formed depending upon the plant to plant. Now this is the oxygen. Oxygen is liberated out as a byproduct of the photosynthesis process, and this is how we see that this process is very essential, giving us two important things. One is the food which we eat, and another important thing is the life-saving gas, that is the oxygen, which is required for all the living organisms. Here in this diagram, I have shown you the transverse section of the dicot leaf. Dicotyledonous plants, there एग्जांपल्स आर द ग्राम पी एंड जिनके अंदर दो कॉटिलेडन्स पाए जाते हैं, वो डाइकॉट प्लांट्स होते हैं. तो उनकी लीव्स जो होती हैं वो भी थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट होती है मोनोकॉटिलेडनस प्लांट्स के. सो दिस इज द अपर एपिडर्मिस लेयर विच इज हैविंग दिस pink in color. This is the single layer cell which has got very less number or absolutely no stomata present. It is a continuous layer. Just no stomata can be present because this is the surface which is in direct contact of the light. So just to reduce the transpirational rate, this surface doesn't have much of the stomata here. Whereas in the lower epidermis, the diagram is not complete here. You have the lower epidermal layer also. So in the lower epidermal layer, you will see plenty of number of stomatal pores over there. So followed by this epidermis layer, and above this you can see this is the cuticle layer. So above the epidermal layer is the cuticle layer, which is again single layer thick waxy coating, which prevents the water loss, and also it does not allow the leaf to get decay from the exposure of the water. Now beneath this epidermal layer, there are these elongated long cylindrical cells which has got rich chlorophyll A component. They are called as the palisade tissues or the mesophyll cells. Basically these are the site of synthesis of food. They are known as the kitchen factory or the kitchen cells of the plants. They are present in the leaves. And followed by these palisade tissues, there are again another row of the palisade tissues. And on the this is the midrib where you see this is the vascular bundle. These are the phloem cells. These are the xylem, and these are the pith. And this is the bundle sheath which is over here. So this is the vascular bundle which is at the midrib of the plant, which is supplying the water and minerals through the to the different parts of the leaves. And these are the spongy cells. So these are spongy cells are loosely arranged. It is not as tightly arranged as these you see the palisade tissues or these elongated cells called as the mesophyll cells are. So there are big air cavities present. They are loosely packed cells, but yet again they contain these kind. Can you see these dot-like structures? They are again chlorophyllous. So the entire leaf from adaxial surface to abaxial surface, you will find that plenty of these chlorophyll filled cells, mesophyll cells or spongy mesophyll cells are occupying the major space. So this is how you see that chlorophyll is widely distributed in the leaf, and this is how this helps in synthesizing the food. Here in this slide, we are talking about the synthesis of plant food other than the carbohydrates. You will be learning to know that we have talked about a lot that in the form of food, the carbohydrates are one of those chief food. But apart from the carbohydrates, the components which are made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, they are called as carbohydrates. And examples I have discussed so many times within this session. So they are the ones which are made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, like glucose, C6H12O6 is a simple carbohydrate. Proteins, they are nitrogenous substances. They contain long chain of amino acids. They basically proteins. They are the polymers of amino acids, which are in which many amino acids, they are bind together by peptide bond, forming a long chain of amino acids. So basically amino means the presence of NH2 group and carboxylic group that constitutes the amino acid. So there is the presence of the nitrogen. So these are proteins, are basically nitrogen containing complex substances, which are the chief components of the food. Proteins we get from in dal, pulses, and all that, they are rich in grams. Pea, all these are beans and all that, they are the rich source of proteins. So nitrogen is present in. Now how do this nitrogen comes? Nitrogen is one of the important ingredient or important component of the air. It is present up to 72% in an air. So nitrogen is present in abundance in the gaseous form in air, but that is useless for all plants and for all organisms until unless it is not converted into ions of nitrates and nitrites. So plants are not able to capture or to absorb this nitrogen directly from the air. For this, they need the help of nitrifying bacteria. They are called as the nitrogen fixing bacteria or nitrifying bacteria, like azotobacter. Then you have what leguminous symbiotic bacteria and rhizobium kind of bacteria, which are chiefly involved in fixing these atmospheric nitrogen into the soluble and the reusable form of nitrogen substances for the plants. So plants cannot absorb nitrogen from directly from the air. So what do? So soil has certain bacteria that assist this conversion of gaseous nitrogen into a usable form and release it into the soil. That means in the form of nitrite and nitrate ions, these nitrogen is fixed up by these nitrifying bacteria like rhizobium, azotobacter, and leguminous bacteria, which are found in the nodules of the leguminous plants. So what do? They are basically adding the nutrients to the soil. So they are adding fertilizers rich in nitrogen to the soil. So that's why these are very, very important to improve the fertility of the soil, and that's why they are so important bacteria for us, because they add nitrogen rich components to increase the fertility of the soil, and that plants can use them to synthesize proteins and certain vitamins where nitrogen component is their chief ingredient. So we'll be talking much more about this and we'll be talking further in these coming slides. Now here, as we are talking about the other modes of nutrition in plants in this slide, so far we have been talking before this, before we proceed into the other modes of nutrition in plants, we were talking right now about the autotrophic mode of green plants. We were talking chiefly about the photosynthesis. Now there are certain other plants also, they show different other modes of nutrition also. So when there is a, apart from photosynthetic or autotrophic mode of nutrition, there are certain other plants which show heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Now what is heterotrophic mode of nutrition? Some plants which do not have the chlorophyll and they cannot synthesize their own food, so they derive their own food from the green plants only. So these plants which derive their food from other plants or other animals or by eating certain animals, they are called as heterotrophs. And this kind of nutrition or this kind of mode of nutrition is called as heterotrophic mode of nutrition, which is exhibited by certain green plants, all certain plants which are not in green in color or which lack chlorophyll as the chief photosynthetic component. So heterotrophic plants can be of different categories. Some of them can be parasite. Now what are parasitic plants? So plants which depend on other plants for food, or some animal to derive their food, they are called as parasite. So one of the example is shown over here. Can you see this non-photosynthetic Cuscuta bale, Amar bale? This is the common name for this parasitic plant called as the Amar bale, and the scientific name is the Cuscuta. So cuscuta can grow as a parasite on different plants. So here you can see this is a picture which is showing that how intensely this parasitic amarbale or cuscuta is deeply invading into the green plant, which is photosynthetic, and deriving its nutrition from various parts of this plant. तो इस तरह से हम देख सकते हैं यहाँ पर ये जो कस्कुटा या अमरबेल जो कि पैरासिटिक प्लांट है वो एक हेल्दी ग्रीन प्लांट के अंदर जो कि फोटोसिंथेटिक प्लांट है उससे उसके अंदर बहुत इंटेंसली बिखरी हुई है, फैली हुई है और यहाँ से अपना न्यूट्रिशन प्राप्त कर रही है. सो कस्कुटा टेक्स फूड फ्रॉम अदर प्लांट on which it is climbing, and this plant, which is green in color, as you can see over here, you can see over here that these green plants, this, can you see these green plants? This is the green plant which is known as the host. तो जिसके ऊपर ये पैरासाइट ग्रो करता है, जिससे अपना डिराइव न्यूट्रिशन डिराइव करता है, जिससे अपना अपने लिए शेल्टर डिराइव करता है, उस प्लांट को क्या बोलते हैं? होस्ट प्लांट. और अमलबेल क्योंकि इससे न्यूट्रिशन डिराइव कर रही है, शेल्टर डिराइव कर रही है, so it will be a parasite. So boys and girls, I am sure you are through with this. I am sure you understand that what are parasitic plants, how do they obtain the nutrition from the autotrophic plants, and why this is known as the heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Another important heterotrophic mode of nutrition we are going to talk in the next slide. Here we are going to talk about the insectivorous plants. Now here these are the another category of insectivorous plants, in which you see that these insectivorous plants are basically those plants which eat insects as their food. So they derive their food by eating insects, including the frogs, lizards, and they can even this pitcher plant can absorb the rat also. You'll be surprised to note that not only small insects, they can eat up small animals also, including small mammals like small rat, or if small amphibians like frogs, butterflies. So these insects, when they come over here, they have got these nectar secreting glands over here which are quite viscous, and sticky material is on the surface. As soon as the insect or some butterfly or some wasp or some caterpillar over here comes and sit over here, these two jaw like leaf, these are the leaflets, they immediately fold it and they trap the insect within it, and the insect is digested by these secreting enzymes, and it is eaten up by these plants, and their digested material is absorbed by the plants. So this is how these insect eating plants like pitcher plant and this Venus flytrap, this is the pitcher plant, pick of the pitcher plant, and this is the this is called as the cobra fly eater, and this is the Venus flytrap. So these are different pictures of uh, basically insectivorous plants which eat insects or some other animals, and they secrete some very strong digestive juices that can dissolve, that can digest the insect, or that can digest their food, and their nutrients are then absorbed by these plants for their nourishment. So this is how you see that this can insectivorous plants are another mode of heterotrophic nutrition. Then saprotrophs. Saprotrophs are chiefly, they are those organisms grow on which grow on these saprotrophs, they grow on dead decaying organic matter. So you can see over here that you can see fungi is one such example, which you can see over here. This is the bark of the tree, on which you can see during the moist season these lichens and these mushrooms are growing over here. You can see that this is the debris of the plant, which is the dead decaying material, organic matter. On this you can see again these colorful and umbrella like substances over. These are the basically these, they are the mushrooms. And not only this, you can see these other fungi, they are also growing over here on the bark of the tree. So they absorb the nutrients from the bread or from the dead and decaying material of the matter. Like that dead and decaying organic matter can be leather, it can be part of the wood, it can be part of the any dead organism. And like you might have seen the bread mold, the bluish green color of fungus. The mold, let's call it the bread mold, is the common saprophytic mode of nutrition, which everybody must have noticed that. So this mode of nutrition in organism is called as the saprophytic nutrition. इस mode of nutrition को हम saprophytic nutrition बोलते हैं. और ऐसे organisms जिनके अंदर ये saprophytic mode of nutrition पाया जाता है, they are called as saprotrophs. Not only fungi growing on the dead organic matter like wood and moist places. Yes, moist places are very much needed, but you might have also seen in your day-to-day life that fungi you can see growing on the bread, piece of the bread. Not only the piece of the bread, also you might have seen they are growing on the pickles, leather, clothes, and other articles that have been left in the hot and humid weather climatic conditions untouched, undisturbed for long time, like your leather shoes or some leather bag which has been kept in the some hot and humid places. So these are the basically chief preferred climatic conditions where these saprophytes they love to grow and they are found growing. So fungal spores, they are present in the air when they land. How do these fungi spread? See, they liberate spores by asexual means they reproduce. So they liberate their spores, they are present in the air, they can be blown away by the current, strong air currents, and when they land on some wet and warm things, they found their best climatic conditions, they germinate and then they grow, they form their new colonies, and from there they can begin their new life cycle. So this is all about various types of nutrition we have seen in plants. I hope the session might have been quite informative and learning for you. You might have gained so many new things also in here. So wish you all the best, and see you in days to come with the new more learnings. We will be joining you again. Thank you so much.